to the Wi-Fi pod, and if you can't tell from the video, we're with Supriya.
No.
So that means it's going to be a type of nutrition slash Ayurveda conversation, and this is where I get to learn a lot because I have nothing to offer. No, that's not true.
No.
But like always, I'm always very interested in whatever we're talking about. And today, I think we're going to start with anyway, types of diets.
Yeah.
Um, like best for, I mean, specifically with each of the doshas in mind. Um, Now, when you say like types of diet, like, are you thinking of like a diet that's got like a name and something, or just like in general, you know?
Yeah, we actually do this in the yoga teacher training programs. One of the
Okay,
courses, one of the classes I do is on like diet and nutrition. And I think
cool.
one way to make that really accessible for people, because you hear all of these different types of diets, right? Like there's a paleo diet and a keto diet and an autoimmune diet and a whole 30 diet and a vegan diet and a vegetarian. I mean, you can go on and on with the different types of diets there are. And I think it can get really overwhelming and really confusing. So we break it down and we say, all right, which like let's look at this diet, let's look at what it's generally composed of, what type of dosha qualities do you think that it would best support, and if this is the type of diet that you would want to do, how can you adapt and adjust it to make it best for your body.
Yeah, that sounds interesting because I once I've really started learning about doshas and specifically mine, I mean, the very little that I really apply on a daily basis. Like I remember being a teacher and being at school at like 7:30 in the morning, right? And just like needing something in my body then, and then like lunch was at a weird time, so I was like at the mercy of the schedule. And
Yeah.
then once I started becoming aware of my dosha specifically, which is kapha, um, adjusting or tinkering like what I eat and when, and boy, it was a huge difference. And especially what as well. Like I laugh at the idea that there were times where I would like go to school with like Greek yogurt, granola, and fruit in the morning,
Yeah.
which is like some of the, I don't say the worst, but like not the ideal. I barely eat breakfast now. Like I don't really eat anything until like 11.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
so
totally
like even the
fine.
fact of eating something at like that early and then functioning and then like realizing it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have eaten that. So even this like little awareness caused me to like have noticeable differences when I made adjustments. So let's start with, I'm going to be selfish. Start with me as a
Yeah.
kapha. Hit me with the diet or hit me with like either the foods or like the times. Yeah. What do you got for me?
Yeah, so I love your story though, because I think so many people do that, right? There's so many foods that are considered quote unquote healthy or that are marketed as healthy. Like, yeah, I think that something like yogurt, granola, fruit is considered, a lot of people would say, oh yeah, that's a really healthy breakfast. And also this
Mm-hmm.
idea that we have to eat breakfast, we have to eat lunch, we have to eat dinner, we have to eat snacks, right? Like eating when your body is hungry, eating when it's going to nourish your body, eating when your body is going to be able to appreciate the food it's getting is much more important than, there's so many studies and they're always conflicting. Eating breakfast is really healthy. Eating breakfast is associated with weight loss. Eating breakfast is associated with weight gain, right? Like there's a lot of different, there's just so much conflicting data out there. So like following what your body needs is going to be the best way. There's even conflicting data on like, some people will say don't eat before bed because then and Ayurvedically that's true that you don't want to eat very close to bed because then you'll be too full and you won't be able to digest the food. On the other hand, if you are don't have enough nourishment in your body, you do not have enough glycogen stores in your liver to support your blood glucose throughout the night, and then you won't sleep well and you will wake up in the middle of the night. So having
Ah,
sometimes
okay.
for some people, especially people who tend to be more estrogen dominant in their bodies, having a little bit of like say raw honey or sugar or orange juice before bed is actually really helpful, so that you boost up those glycogen stores and you help sustain better sleep throughout the night. So I'm just trying to give examples of like how much conflicting information there is out there.
Yeah. I
Say
mean,
like,
for however many times you hear one thing, you hear another opposite thing. That's really interesting you bring up because it's often sometimes if, something happens in my day where like, oh, I can't eat dinner at the regular time or it's late, and I'm hungry. I'm like, I don't want to sit down. I'm not, it's like 9:45 or 10 o'clock. I'm not eating a dinner, but I need something. And it's like,
yeah,
then it's just like whatever snack is available. It's like, okay, tortilla chips or potato chips, or like we get this thing, we get this like, I don't know what it's called, this market where we like order some food and they just like send it to us. And one of the things is like a bag of olives.
Okay.
And I could just rip open a bag of olives. I can eat. I have such a savory palate, like of just olives. And I'm just eating them, and often Jeannie's like, "Is that what you're like? The snack is just olives?" I'm like, "Yes, I could have dirty martinis, olives, anytime, man."
Is
So
it the
like that's what
saltiness
I kind of
or
go
like
to.
what attracts you? Is it the fattiness of the olives, the stringency, the saltiness? I'm really curious.
I think it's the saltiness, like just that
Oh.
like savory. It's oh my god.
Is that something you've
Like I
noticed
said, like
more? Is that like been true for you all your life, or something you've noticed more as like you've gotten older?
definitely when I was old older, definitely like growing up until like 22 or so, didn't really care about olives, but like I don't know what I ate if it was, and all of a sudden I was just like, huh, and then I'm like, oh, these are delicious. So like, I would even go so far as like I would make a salt bagel
Yeah.
with olive cream cheese or just cream cheese with like cut up green olives
Yeah.
and capers. It
Oh.
was like a such a salty, savory, like oh my god, my
Yeah.
mouth is watering just thinking about it. But like when I remember that, I'm just like, holy cow, that's such a salty
Yeah.
thing.
And so
Um,
it's awesome to bring awareness to it too, because right, so much salt. What does salt balance? Salt is really balancing for vata dosha, which is why I asked a little
oh,
bit about age, because as we get older, we transition into more of that vata stage of life. It could also
oh,
be, right, like if you're thinking about more of like your 20s, if you think about like your mid 20s, right, you're transitioning out of college into the world, there's a lot more potentially, there could be a lot more like almost like anxiety, like now I've got to do all these life things by myself. I'm no longer in like the cocoon of college, and
right,
like where life is
yeah,
totally different, and I've got to worry about paying the bills and like
mm-hmm,
and so that can also like kick up some like sort of like a little bit more anxiety in the body, and
mm-hmm.
so that can also be a little bit more vata provoking, and so
Oh,
it's just really curious because yeah, eating just like salt whether it's like olives or like salted nuts or
mm-hmm.
like smoked salmon is pretty salty, that is usually pretty balancing for vata dosha. So
Huh, that is so interesting. Yeah, it was definitely after college. I was still, I full time job working, and then I remember talking to my mother at one point because like I had with the job I had, I was working 8:30 to 4:30, right? So I got home at like quarter to five, 5 o'clock. At one point, I was talking to my mom, and I was like, I was still used to like it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so like the day is over. Why bother do anything, right? When I'm used to college, where it's just like, oh, the day is totally open. And I was like, Mom, what is this? Is this it? Is this what this is? And she's like, Yeah, it is. So that may say more about my mother's attitude. And I was like, oh my God. Like but it was just that fun. It was just like you're saying, like the realization, like you are transitioning out of one thing
yeah,
to another lifestyle or time in your life.
yeah,
So yeah, there was like all that kicking up. So it's really funny that like to notice that like, yeah, that was kind of when I was like noticing a little bit of a palate change.
yeah.
Totally. But you were saying like, what would be a more ideal, or like if it's like okay it's 10:40, 10:30, and I'm didn't get dinner and I'm kind of hungry but I don't want a full meal, what
Right.
would be a better choice? I think you said like honey or something like or
So
something like that.
so that's more for like making sure like your glycogen stores are topped off in your liver at the end of the night. But
Mhm.
I think the best question is to ask like, what do you have around? Like, what are the options usually like, and then let's play from there.
Yeah, lately it's olives trail mix, also like granola with trail mix, which I just love. It's so good, and that's on the sweet side too, which I usually don't do. Usually I'm a savory person, not. And Jeannie hates it because she's like, do you want to go get an ice cream? And I'm always like, no, never. No, thank you. I mean, we can go, but I don't want anything.
Yeah.
And then she does. I've seen TikToks where a husband will be asked by his spouse, she's like, "Would you like to go get this thing?" I'm like, "I don't want it, but we can go." And she's like, "Well, then no, we're not going." I'm like, "We can go. I'm just, I don't want anything." Um, so yeah, what other kind of like for a kapha, let's say, what's a good like either diet or you know
Yeah. So I would
nutritional
say
stuff?
in general, so when you think about kapha dosha, right, a lot of water, a lot of earth, there's a lot of moisture already in the body, or it's very prone to retaining more of that moisture that's around it. So generally speaking, you'd want to go more with like lighter foods, like you think like a veganish sort of diet, where you have
Mm,
more of like your raw vegetables and your and less of like the heavier animal fats, less of like the dairy, because the body doesn't necessarily need as much because it just naturally holds on to what it has.
Yeah. I mean, even this time of year in the summertime, I don't drink a whole lot of water. And I always thought that was like, I never really knew what to make of it. I mean, sometimes definitely, especially again, when I was teaching and coaching, it was later in the school year, so it was starting to get warm. I like would make sure I'm hydrated and drink water. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't need, it was like an effort, or like I had to like, I was like, oh, I better drink water because I'm supposed to be hydrated. But like my body, I was never like, I'm really thirsty. And even now, even like if it's 85 degrees outside,
Yeah.
I'll do one mason jar's worth of water throughout the day. And that's even if I'm active.
Hmm.
I don't really need more. So like that's like the kapha part where it's like I'm already
Exactly. And
got that.
also,
So
like, I don't know about what it's like in Ithaca right now, but at least over here it is. And you're from this area, right? You're from
hmm
Hamilton, right? So you may
yep.
or may not remember, but like, it is so humid right now.
Yeah.
It
Oh
is
man, I
so,
bet.
there's so much moisture in the air. Like, it doesn't matter whether or not you're predominantly confident. There's so much stickiness and humidity and moisture in the air. There's
I
almost so much water your body can absorb by drinking it.
oh my god, I remember. Yeah, like it was, and that was like I was playing baseball from age 5 to 18, so it's like even in July and August, it's
Yeah,
like not only hot, but it's like oh, it is super
it's
humid. It's not really
exactly.
humid here. I mean, even the last couple of days, it was like 85. It was warm summer day, but it was no humidity. Even today, it's like today, the next couple of days, the high is like mid 70s. Like it was
Oh
50
wow,
this morning. It was
wow.
awesome. Like it
Fall
was nice,
already.
and yeah, I know. I have very mixed feelings about it because I feel like summer started like spring started in like June. If it
Yeah.
was like end of May, I'm still like it's cold. This is garbage. On a normal summer, if it's 50 in the morning, I'm like, ooh, get my pumpkin spice ready. But now I need more summer. Um,
Yes, definitely need more summer as well.
yeah, yeah, not a lot of water. I don't need you're totally right. Like I mean that tracks. I never really needed a whole lot.
Yeah, but like, and then also to go back to your question about late night eating. So I think a
Mhm.
lot of people do tend to crave sweets later at night. And I
Yeah.
think that tends to be more physiological in the sense that we are up later than maybe our biological clock and our circadian rhythm is attuned, naturally
Mm.
attuned to us being, right? Like if we follow the rhythms of nature, we follow the rhythms of the sun. So if we are, so regardless of like Ayurveda and times of day, if we are up later at night, then our body's like, oh, there needs to be a reason that we're up later at night. We must need extra energy to get us
Mm.
through whatever that reason is. What is a
hmm
quick source of energy? It's going to be something sweet. So I think
Mm.
that's why people
Oh.
tend to crave sweeter things late at night. It's because they're up, their body is biologically attuned to say, "Oh, I'm up. I must need extra energy to get me through whatever this like pushes through the night." So, what's the quickest source of energy? It's going to be something sweet tasting.
Man, that's so interesting. That's so cool. I mean, we did we recorded a podcast earlier. We talked about the today is Lunasa, the pagan holiday, which is like between the solstice and the equinox. So
Yep, we're
like
halfway. We're halfway to
it
the equinox.
yeah, halfway there. So we talked about like it's the first harvest. You're
Hmm.
like harvesting some things. You're doing some inventory about like what to get rid of, what to keep, and just every time I hear Jeannie talk about it, I'm just struck by like the practicality of it. Like, well, this is how it started and what they're doing this time of year
Hmm.
because of like the seasons and the geography and the nature, and like that makes so total sense. Um, and hearing you be like, yeah, if you need a quick hit of energy late at night, yeah, something sweet, then I'll do it. I'm like, mind blown. It's so cool.
It really is that simple, though, right? Like that's the best part of it. Like it really is not complicated.
Yeah, it really isn't. And I think we do a lot of overcomplicating when
Mhm.
I mean, there's just so much information out there. And then you're right. Like we just tend to overcomplicate
Yeah.
and yeah, it just becomes confusing after that. Um, yeah. And everything else, like you said, totally tracks. Like dairy, I love cheese, but cheese does not love me. So like oh, speaking of olives, man, olives with like a little blue cheese or like
Mhm.
gorgonzola stuffed in
Mhm.
it. Oh my God. That's the best. But I like it doesn't really. I always feel like mucusy
Yeah,
afterwards. Like I
super
don't feel
mucusy,
good,
heavy.
except for like uh goat cheese or feta is really the most gentle types for me. But usual other kind of cheese, it's just like too much.
Something else to pay attention to, especially if you do better with like goat's cheese, and I'm wondering with feta, because a lot of times feta can also be sheep's cheese instead of cow's milk.
Mm,
So it
yeah.
might be the type of milk, in which case it could be that most cow's milk, commercial cow's milk in the United States at least, is going to be what's called A1, A2 milk. And what this
Okay.
refers to is the type of protein in it. So all milk is going to have a type of protein, two types of protein, whey and casein. And so this refers to the type of casein protein. So in the grocery stores now, you'll see like A2 milk sometimes.
Mm,
It's definitely way more expensive. But the difference is that the A2 form of the casein protein, and this is completely natural, it's not like engineered or anything like that. It's just that some types of animals naturally produce that, and some other types of animals naturally produce more A1, A2. But the
mm,
A2 protein is supposed to be much easier to digest from a casein perspective
okay.
compared to the A1 form. So if you're doing better with goat's milk and potentially sheep's milk if it's feta cheese, it could just
Mm.
be that you would do better with A2 specific
No.
forms of dairy.
Oh, that's cool. Well, that's something to pay attention to because I never knew or thought to encounter that. So I going shopping after this episode today. So at Wegmans, I'm going to check all this out. I'm going to look for A2. So like, don't be surprised if you get like a message in Slack from me and be like, I found it. Check it out. um,
Nice.
yeah, and of course, I mean, actually, here's a question because if I've ever been to like Europe, like I've been to Italy and eat like the cheese or the pizza, it feels so different. Like if I eat fresh mozzarella here, it feels way different than if I eat it in Europe, and that must be something to do with how it's made, processed, or I don't even know what. But I
Yes.
remember like not feeling like here at Vedia Pizza, I'm not going to be as productive as my wife would like me to be. But and whenever we traveled, it's like we eat a pizza over there, like
Yeah.
got lots of cheese on it. And I'm just like, oh wow, it surprisingly feel not heavy after eating
Yeah.
it.
And it might not even also just be the cheese by itself. It could also be the bread and the dough. So
Oh, okay.
most wheat in the United States, if you're buying just commercial non-organic wheat, is going to be genetically modified. And it
Mm.
is genetically modified so that they can spread. It's called Roundup Ready crops, and they are literally Roundup Ready because you can spray them heavily with Roundup, and they're genetically modified so that they don't die with all the Roundup spraying.
Wow.
So the non-organic wheat crop in the United States, wheat, corn, and soy, is very heavily um, sprayed and exposed to like fertilizers and pesticides and
Hmm.
insecticides, and of course that translates into the food itself. In
Yeah.
Europe, they don't allow that. So they
Hmm.
have like a standard below which it cannot be genetically modified. It's like a very, very low amount, just to allow for like cross contamination. And so most people, when they do travel to Europe and they do eat like bread and other wheat-based products in Europe, tend to digest it better because they're not getting that same like pesticide overload into their body. So it's much easier
Yeah.
to
I
digest.
I think I ate the same and I lost weight. Like it was. I mean, seriously. Like I think activity level was probably a little higher with the walking
Yeah, because you're
around
probably
and seeing
walking more. Yeah.
stuff. Right. I mean, but like I didn't for once lack for a hearty dinner. You know what I mean? Oh my God. There was a place called Zaza's in
Okay.
Florence. We went to visit our daughter who was studying abroad there like 2019. And
Nice.
then had a steak that was like at least like 1.5 kilograms. It was huge. It was,
Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
it was ridiculous. And
Wow.
we split it. And it was like it was so good. But it was like a typical American. I'm like, oh, 1 point whatever kilos. That's probably fine. I have no idea what you're talking about. And they brought it out, and
Oh
it
my
was the
goodness.
size of like my chest. It was like torso.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
this
like
is amazing.
three
But me and
pounds
my
or a
daughter,
little
we
over 3 pounds.
yeah, we took care of it. It was great.
Nice.
Um,
Very nice.
yeah, definitely. But like with meat, I definitely like I don't eat steak often. Occasionally, but I found myself being really drawn towards like fish. Fish is just the easiest. I don't know. I mean, that's probably everyone can do fish easier than steak, but like swordfish is like almost a staple in the summertime. So
Oh, nice. Where do
yeah.
you find it sustainably?
Good question as far as sustainable. Trader Joe's. I don't know how sustainable. I can't answer that part. But it comes in like usually a 2 pack of swordfish steak, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
hope
yeah. I've
it's
seen that too.
sustainable because it's delicious. um, all right, so like kapha, I'm getting a good understanding. Any other
Yeah.
details about diet in the kapha dosha?
So I loved what you said about going more towards fish, because that was actually
Mm,
going to be kind of the next place I went with this, which is you can modify almost any diet to fit your dosha. So we can go towards like a paleo diet, which people might think of as the opposite of a vegan diet, because vegan diets avoid any meat products, and paleo diets tend to be very heavy on like meat and vegetables. But actually, I think they're closer than they are separate, because they're both trying to go back to a more natural form of eating. And it's just kind of
mm,
how you define that more natural form of eating and which works best in your body. So even if you're kapha dosha, or tend predominantly to kapha dosha, or tend predominantly to kapha dosha in your digestive system, you can still do a paleo diet. It's just one, heavier on the vegetables as opposed to
mm,
like more of the meat. And then when you do meat, go towards lighter cuts, right? Fish instead of maybe a heavier steak.
mm.
This is the person who's probably going to do more of like the lean chicken breast, maybe more of like eggs. So definitely still doable when you're doing even like a paleo diet. You would just need to be a little bit more cautious that your cuts of meat are a little bit on the lighter side, and that you're
Mm.
really going heavily on like the leafy greens and the vegetables, and that side of it.
Oof. You say lighter steak. I was thinking about the last steak I got. It was probably this thick. It was a fillet. I seared it on a cast iron, and
Nice.
it was not light, but it was good.
But like
Now
a flat
I've
iron steak, right? Like it's not going to be like super. It's not going to be super
yeah,
heavy. It's not going to be right. So like you
right,
can definitely find your way around it.
yeah.
Um,
Um, I don't. What exactly is? Can you explain the paleo diet? Because I've been hearing about it, and I think I've assumed I know what it is or know what it
oh,
entails.
we should totally break
But
down. Yeah, you're totally right. We should have started by like breaking down what are the different diets I said I'm talking
hey, no time like the now. I love it. What is?
about.
I mean, when I hear paleo diet, I for some reason go right to meat, which is not accurate at all. Like I taught social studies for 10 years. I know it was like hunting and gathering. Like gathering was the big part. So like yeah, what is the paleo diet? I guess
Yeah,
that's my
like
question.
yeah, let's talk about different diet types. Let us start. Let's start, I guess. Yeah, okay. Let's start with like vegan, and then work our way up to more meat
Okay,
heavy, I guess.
let's do it.
So a vegan diet is one that eschews any meat products. So things like even like honey, for example, because it's produced by bees, is not usually considered vegan. So it'll eschew.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So like maple
I had
syrup
no
is
idea.
vegan, but honey is not vegan. So on a vegan diet, it tends to be primarily um, heavily based in vegetables when it's done well. A
Hmm.
lot of people do tend to augment with, say, like soy based products for the protein, or tempeh, which is a type of heavier, denser wheat, which actually can be of like wheat protein, which actually can be really difficult to digest too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so when somebody is following a vegan diet, they need to be really careful with one. I think these days, like even at Trader Joe's, you can find so many vegan products. So I think something to be like really careful and cautious of is that staying with like the more natural based products, the more whole foods products, the more like vegetables, and because you can find like potato chips are vegan, for example,
Mm.
because it's just potatoes fried in oil with salt. So potato chips are vegan. I think so. I think Oreos are vegan if I remember correctly. Oreos are
Yeah.
technically vegan.
You know,
So
it's funny. I'm thinking of a time we were hanging out with friends, and she brought out like a tray of like brownies or something, and she's like, "These are vegan," and we're like, "Oh no, no, don't let that fool you. There is, I don't even know what was in it." She's like, "This is loaded with this, so don't let that think it was healthy." So like that was the first time I'm like, huh, I guess I never really thought of that. Like I just assumed it was like super healthier all the time. But now that you say it, like, yeah, if I'm eating potato chips and Oreos, like, oh, this is a vegan snack right now. But
yeah, so definitely like making like being cautious to not go down that route, if that is one of your goals. Um, People who tend to follow vegan diet generally tend to need to supplement with B12, vitamin B12, because vitamin B12 is only available in animal products.
Hmm.
and also generally more so vitamin D. I mean, generally most people don't get enough sunlight and need to supplement with vitamin D overall, but especially so because you can find small amounts in like milk, for example. So
Hmm.
somebody who follows a vegan diet probably does need to be pay a little more attention to that. Um, Next, you kind of have a vegetarian diet. So a vegetarian diet allows, generally speaking, a vegetarian diet will allow eggs and allow butter. So a vegetarian diet will allow some products like butter and honey. That's generally allowable. Some are consider themselves ovo-lacto vegetarians. What does that mean? Ovo means eggs and lacto means
Hmm.
dairy. So a vegetarian will like allow like butter and um, allow some like honey and things like that. And then people will further define themselves potentially whether they're a lacto vegetarian in the case that they just allow dairy but they don't allow eggs, whether they're an ovo lacto vegetarian, in which case they do both eat eggs and dairy.
Hmm.
The
Okay.
next diet up from that is going to be a pescatarian diet. So
Okay. That one I've
pescatarian
heard
diet,
of.
yeah. So
Fish.
pescatarian, yes, exactly. Exactly. So a pescatarian diet is going to allow fish in addition to um, eggs and dairy. In general, a pescatarian diet is going to be closest to the Mediterranean diet. And the reason
Hmm.
that I say that is everyone's like, Mediterranean diet, touted as the most healthiest diet, right? All these studies. So in general, a pescatarian diet is going to be the closest to a Mediterranean diet. You're going to be heavier on the fish, heavier on the vegetables, heavier on like nuts and seeds.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like where your Mediterranean diet will fall into as well.
Okay.
Um, then next up from a pescatarian diet, we'll kind of get to I think would probably be the next would be like closer to like the your omnivore diet, right? Like eat
Okay.
everything.
Yeah.
Then we get like the standard American diet, which is a lot of like McDonald's type food.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of get to the other end of the spectrum, which is going to be your paleo diet. And your paleo diet is going to be focused primarily on meats and vegetables. Um, there are a couple different camps in the paleo diet. So there is more of a primal diet camp, and the primal diet does allow full fat dairy. So full
Okay.
fat dairy or raw dairy is allowed in the primal camp. So this is going to be like your butter, your ghee,
Hmm.
things of that nature. Um, whole fat cream, not so much milk because of the lactose, the sugar content in milk. But some people do really well on that, and especially if you're more in the raw dairy camp, then they will attempt to drink milk. Then you have paleo, which is like more strict, which does not allow dairy. So a
Hmm.
paleo diet is basically saying we think our Paleolithic ancestors ate this way, and this
Okay.
way is going to be no grains. Because what this is saying is that. Or the philosophy behind this sort of diet is that these were developed later on when we kind of moved to more of like a farming culture, and
Hmm.
regardless of what you feel about that, these days, the way in which big agriculture has evolved in so many industrialized countries is that these things are no longer grown in a way that is nutritious or sustainable or healthy for us. And so, generally, legumes are not eaten. Anything with like wheat is not eaten. So it's sometimes people will do things like eat green beans or like snap peas, which are more like
Hmm.
vegetables than they are really legumes. Um, Generally, nuts are allowed, but like say like a peanut is technically a legume, so a lot of people won't eat peanuts.
Hmm.
So generally avoiding grains and legumes, and really grains, legumes, and dairy, and really staying with the meats and the vegetables. Then you can
Okay.
kind of get
So
to
paleo is like if you. So paleo is like if you could throw a spear at it and kill it, or if you could pick it off a tree
yeah,
on your
that's a
way
great
to
way
the
of thinking
next
about it.
cave.
That's a great way
Okay.
of thinking about it. Yeah. Then you kind of get to a couple other like niche specialty diets. So, and this is not all the diets in the world, right? Like this is just like a
Hmm.
broad overview of some popular diets. There are many different diets and many different variations. This is kind of like a broad overview of kind of like some of the spectrum of diets. So then kind of for some niche diets, you get to a keto diet. So a keto diet is going to be focusing on a high fat diet. And really, and that's what it's defined as. It's defined as usually defined as 30 grams of carbohydrates or less. So very technically, you define it by when your body goes into ketosis, but in order to measure that accurately, you would need to do like a blood test, which nobody's
Mm.
doing a blood test. So
Right.
instead,
Yeah.
when your body there are you can do urine tests, but they're not actually that accurate. So I don't, and those are more convenient and more readily available, but again, not very accurate.
Hmm.
But basically, what happens after your body goes without carbohydrates for a longer period of time, it starts producing ketones for energy instead. And ketones tend to be produced more from fat. So that's why the carbohydrate level is really low in a keto diet. So that's really what defines it, is keeping, generally speaking, overall carbs less than 30 grams. That is very difficult to do. Like you're
Yeah.
eating like some leafy green vegetables, but like sweet potatoes, carrots, beets, like even some people like measure the amount of onions that they use because of the polysaccharide
Mm.
amount in onions. So it can be really tricky to do. I would say in general, people who tend to have more testosterone in their bodies can generally handle a keto diet better than people who tend to have more estrogen in their bodies. It just
Mm.
becomes very difficult with a low level of carbohydrates, and your body can kind of go into a lack of like a scarcity, and it can really impact like hormone levels and cycle levels. Um, that being said, keto diets definitely have a really strong place actually in the medical field.
Mm.
They are medically used to treat epilepsy,
Really?
epilepsy that cannot be treated by anything else,
Wow.
refractory epilepsy. Yeah, so it is actually really it is used medically. I would say that a lot of diseases now we're really starting to see are actually imbalances of insulin resistance and glucose balance, whether that's like PCOS or Alzheimer's disease even. So
Mm.
really like understanding blood sugar control in the body is becoming even more important. So I could see, temporarily, because again, this is a hard diet to do correctly for a very long period of time, unless again something like refractory epilepsy where you have to.
Mm.
I can see uses for it if somebody's like, hey, maybe I'm like beginning stages of Alzheimer's disease and I want to do something, or I have PCOS and I want to do something to help with my insulin resistance and blood sugar control. That being said, I think it's also another diet similar to like vegan and Oreos, where it's very easy to kind of like uh, do it in a way that's maybe not the most healthful, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
You see like these like keto bombs and things like that, which like if you use it by a bunch of like stevia and like butter, like like how much nutrition are you really getting?
Right.
So
Like technically, it fits, but it's not all that healthy.
exactly. It
Yeah.
fits, but it doesn't have a lot of nutrition in it for your body. So, just be careful about that. Like if you made a cheesecake with either no crust or like a coconut flour crust that was sweetened with like stevia, or glycine is used sometimes as a sweetener. Monk fruit is used as a sweetener. We can go into different types of sweeteners if we want to. We can go into xylitol and norethol, and we can go down the list of sweeteners as well. But I mean, it's technically keto, but like, should you
Right.
like? But how much nutrition is your body getting by eating an entire cheesecake then? So, uh, I think that's something to be careful about. Other popular diets, Whole 30 is a popular diet, especially around January. Whole 30 is basically
Mm.
an elimination diet. So the
Oh, okay.
point of Whole 30 is to say, let's go back to natural foods to try and recalibrate our bodies. And so it's not about like what you do eat. It's about what you, so it cuts out like refined sugar, it cuts out alcohol. So it's just really about focusing on like whole foods for 30 days and seeing how
Mm.
that recalibrates your body, your sleep, your cravings, etc.
Mm.
It cuts out like you know sodas and things like that,
Yeah.
right? Like, so that's what a Whole 30 is. And then lastly, you get autoimmune protocols, and those are usually a variation of a paleo diet. Because so what an autoimmune protocol is trying to do is it's trying to also remove any foods that could possibly be aggravating to the body and that could be triggering more inflammation in the body. And generally, autoimmune conditions come with increased inflammation in the body. So they're trying to remove everything. Autoimmune diets and autoimmune protocols are not meant to be followed for a prolonged period of time. Following them for a prolonged period of time can lead to nutrient depletion.
Mm,
I'm not saying that's always the case. There's definitely ways around that. There's definitely ways that you can make sure that you're getting all the nutrition that you need. However, they're meant to help you reset the gut to like remove anything that could potentially be causing any sort of reactivity in the body so that your body then has time to heal, so that you can then heal your gut. Because if our body is healed, if our gut lining is intact, then we shouldn't be reacting to all these foods. We're reacting to all
mm,
these foods because our gut lining isn't healed, because it is, what people popularly call leaky gut. So these larger molecules, these larger proteins, which should be able to pass through the tight junction in the gut, are then getting in through to the bloodstream, and then our body is reacting to them as if they're a foreign invader, and then we're getting more
mm.
inflammation.
Ah,
So it's a way to remove. So for example, like nightshades are something that's usually removed in an autoimmune protocol. So I start with a paleo diet because a paleo diet removes a lot of things that people tend to react to, like legumes, for example, because legumes are really high in lectins. So it tends to remove things, or dairy, commercial dairy, tends to remove things that people tend to react to, and then it removes even more. So it'll remove like nightshades are common. So nightshades are going to be like your tomatoes, your peppers, your eggplants, etc. Ashwagandha is actually a nightshade. It'll remove
mm,
nuts. Generally, nuts are removed from an autoimmune protocol. Eggs, people tend to react to eggs. Eggs are removed from the autoimmune protocol. Your spices tend to be fairly limited as well, generally because they fall into the nightshade category. Uh,
mm.
so so again, but that is just supposed to be like temporarily to really help reset your gut, to help your body heal. So then you can so the most important part about this is then going to be the reintroduction phase, where you
Mm.
slowly reintroduce foods one by one to see what your body is able to handle and then what you're still reacting to.
Wow. Man, no wonder people have like, I mean, myself, tricky times, like trouble, like navigating all this stuff because there's just
Yeah.
so much and it's so complicated. Like, and a lot of times what we are inundated with, what we see is what is eat this for breakfast, eat this for whatever. It's like not always the best thing. I mean, sometimes it's like the worst thing. Um, yeah, I never eat in the morning. I don't, unless like this time of year, if I like wake up at 5 in the morning to go play golf, I'll eat a banana, but that's
Okay.
about it, right?
And that makes
Yeah.
sense because like you're going to be out in the hot sun, you're going to be walking, you're going to be playing golf. You want, but right, we talked about like the late night eating. You want a little bit of energy to get you
Hmm.
through the activity, right? So that makes
Yeah.
sense. That is a little bit of like natural energy to help you get through the activity.
Yeah. Um, so how about like the vata and the pitta? Like, what are some things that like are particularly good for those doshas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with pitta dosha, so pitta doshas, people with more pitta dosha in their constitution, in their diet, in their digestive system, they tend to have very voracious appetites. They tend to be have really high digestive fire, really high agni, so they can digest foods really well. So they're able to digest more of the, so they can kind of like go across the spectrum because they don't end up with a lot of digestive difficulties in that sense. I mean, sometimes when there's too much heat in the body, can get released as diarrhea. But
Mm,
generally speaking, because the digestive fire is so high, they'll want to ensure that they are eating enough to keep that
mm,
digestive fire satiated. Because if it's not satiated, then it'll just it'll go unchecked, and then it can start to like wear down the stomach lining, and then you can start to get heartburn, and then heartburn, and then the ulcers is kind of like the next step.
mm.
So you want to make sure that that digestive fire is satiated, that it has something to kind of like chew on, so to speak,
Yeah,
so that it doesn't like start to then break down like the stomach lining instead.
man. Like that sounds like you said like the digestive fire. It sounds like that dosha is like a like raging fire, and I like feel like my like for kapha, it's like like the slow fire that you
Yep.
would like roast something over.
Yep.
Like that's what it is.
Exactly.
It's just so slow. Like it just
Exactly.
I'm just always shocked like to learn it's like, oh, this dosha would feel great if they do these things. I'm like, oh my god, if I did that, holy cow, that would not. I would be not. I wouldn't move. I would just be like, I can't do it. I just need. Yeah, it's just remarkable. Um,
Yeah. So
yeah.
someone with a lot of pitta dosha in their digestive system, they can do like raw foods because they can digest them really well. On the other
Mm,
hand, I would really pair those raw foods with like protein and fat because otherwise it's not going to keep that person satiated for long.
yeah. And that was
Yeah.
pitta. You said.
Yeah. And
Right.
then going to a vata dosha. So someone with more vata dosha in their constitution, because they have so much air and ether, they're going to need more grounding. So foods that are
Mm,
going to be heavier are going to be much more nourishing for someone with more vata dosha. So this
mm,
is somebody who's actually really going to enjoy like your heavier cuts of meat.
mm,
Someone who's going to have difficulty digesting raw vegetables. So because the vata digestive system tends to be variable. So sometimes it can feel like it tends to be variable in a lot of different ways. So sometimes the digestive fire is really high and sometimes it's really low. Sometimes you think you're really hungry and then you go to eat and your digestive fire is really low. Sometimes you don't think you're hungry, you go to eat and your digestive fire is really high. And someone who has a lot of vata dosha, this is me all the time. Um, so what do you do?
mm.
Start with smaller portion sizes. So definitely go towards those grounding foods, those heavier cuts of meat, having more fat that you know that your body can digest. So some people do better with ghee, some people do better with butter, some people do better with olive oil, some people do better with coconut oil. Just kind of knowing your body and what you do better with. So you definitely want those grounding, nourishing, lubricating because vata dosha tends to be very dry. So you definitely need
Mm.
that healthy fat in there. Foods, but start with smaller portions. Start with smaller portions to see how much your body is able to digest. Because if you eat too much, then you're just going to overwhelm your digestive fire, and then the food is just going to sit. It's not going to feel comfortable for you at all,
Right.
and you're not going to get as much nourishment from it because you've just dampened your digestive fire.
Mm,
So starting with smaller portions is really important. Cooking well cooked food is really important so that it is more easily digestible. When we start to cook our food, we've already introduced a fire element to it. So
mm,
now that the fire element has already started in that process, it's a little bit easier on our digestive fire to digest.
mm,
And then well spiced to help with that digestive process as well. It's going to
mm.
be really important. And same with kapha dosha, that having well spiced food is really really helpful to help with that to help increase that digestive fire. And kapha doshas in particular can really go heavy on the spice, like hot
Oh.
heavy spices, because there's so much moisture in the body already. You're not going to burn yourself out.
Mm.
Whereas someone with more vata dosha, if you go too hot and heavy on the spices, can sometimes burn themselves out because they're already prone to dryness.
Oh, that's so
So that's
interesting.
yeah. So that would be someone who like a paleo diet could work really well for, um, but ensuring that they're starting with smaller portions, that their food is well spiced and well cooked, and they're not using as much of the raw vegetables.
Yeah. Oh man, like another thing we talked earlier about like the lunasa and the like the clearing out and like the spice cabinets, like getting rid of some stuff. What do we need? That kind of thing. Inventory. When we just I reflected on Montreal steak seasoning and Old Bay. Like I can't buy enough of that. That's like every time it just douses it on like Montreal steak seasoning on steak, but Old Bay on a swordfish. Oh man, like it's just like all over. I don't even pretend to be like, oh, just a little. No, man, that
Oh
is
no,
covered. Also, and I
I
made one
spent like 10
time.
years in Baltimore, so like Old Bay on everything.
Yes,
Right? It's
absolutely.
such a Baltimore thing. Like you put old like literally you put like Old Bay on chocolate. Like it's a thing. Like
Oh, I can see that
oh yeah,
totally.
Old
Like,
Bay goes like you have a container like this big of Old Bay at all
oh
times,
yeah, I do. Like, and
right?
like last
And it goes on
summer,
everything. It doesn't matter what it is, it fits.
we went to Jeannie and I went to the Outer Banks for vacation,
Nice.
and totally like discovered Old Bay. And like we got, I think it's just with like Old Bay, like the potato chips. I'm like, oh, this is delicious. I love this. And like my birthday was like the next week, and Jeannie got
Nice.
me a thing of Old Bay. I was like, yes.
Nice.
Oh my god. But yeah, like burgers. Oh,
Oh yeah.
I put it on everything. Um, yeah, and then I made this other thing. I think I made chicken paprika one time, and I'm just like, all the spices that are. I read Dracula, and I was like, in the very beginning, the guy's like chicken paprika, and I'm like, oh, that sounds delicious. How do you make it? And it's like there's all like two different kinds of pepper, and I'm like, this seems like a bit much, but like, loved it. And I'm not like huge on the. I like a lot of spice,
Yeah.
not super hot, right?
Okay.
Like it doesn't have to be super super hot,
Yeah.
but like a lot of it, yeah,
Mhm.
totally. I can do that all day.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I need lots of spice in my food.
Yeah, totally. Wow, this man, this is like I'm just like reflecting on all the information I just got in the past 45 minutes, which I'm sure I hope comes up again when we talk because I will attain 10% of it, even though I'll probably listen to this episode again just to make sure I'm
Yeah,
checking
I
my
know.
console box.
There's a lot of information there, and there's a lot of information that we didn't even get to actually, like why some fats might be easier to digest than others, or what should you look for when you go to the grocery store? Like, what are like signals to look for in food, things like that.
Yeah. Well, don't worry because you're in the monthly rotation, so
Yes, so excited.
you are. We got a spot for you every 4 weeks, so there's not a lack of things to talk about.
Oh no.
But as always, Supriya, thank you so much for your time today. Because as far as the Ayurveda, but then like basic nutrition, which like I always could use a refresher, and it's always awesome to hear. Um, so, any other final thoughts on diets and doshas? What do you got? Like, close us out. Last
Ooh.
2 minutes. Any conclusions?
You know what? I'll close this out with being a little bit seasonal. So, we're in summer right now. We're in the height of Pitta season. We're going to be transitioning. We were just talking about cooler days and transitioning
Mm-hmm.
to a Vata season, which is going to be a lot of dryness. So, the thing to really watch out for this time of year is the heat makes it really easy to dry out. And then we dry out going into Vata season, which is going to be drier anyway. And we can start to see
Mm-hmm.
the wind pick up and we can start to see the dryness come. So, just like watching that in yourself and bringing that awareness to say like, where are my hydration levels, where is my balance, am I starting to dry out too much, do I need to have more like more moisture.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Supriya. Yeah, like I said, monthly rotation. So we'll be hearing from you not too far in the distant future. But for the Wi-Fi pod, this is Matt.
This is Supriya.
Thank you so much.